government are not the only organization with a security issue, right? Healthcare industry, the financial sector, you could go down a long list of just business sectors that have issues around particularly data security in the cloud, and many of them are trying to push very, very hard in order to leverage what they view as the value propositions that cloud presents to them. So from a technological basis, not being the only people having this problem space, what technologies are out there? Where are companies like VMware and others taking this to help us actually be able to address this?
So, very good question. So when you go back to Jim Sweeney's slides, and he had divided up the roles and responsibilities tiers between what we are responsible for as the owners of the data and the services versus what's at the underlying tier. There is a certain level of assumption that you have to make that based on the control mechanisms that are readily available today, that the service provider is meeting the baseline requirements at a minimum and hopefully more, and can expose this to you in a way that you understand the speeds and feeds that they are providing you are secure. What needs to take place, I think, from a technology perspective, and what has been taking place, is that the physical boundaries of a data center no longer exist. The physical boundaries of an IP and a namespace no longer exist. So you can now move data and workloads across geographies without having to reinstitute the wheel and put a new name on it or a new location service attachment to it. You're seeing technologies evolve up into becoming virtualization aware. So as something moves from one place to the next, the security posture and tag that I've associated with that particular workload or application or data, depending on the type of cloud you're deploying, should know before it ever places itself somewhere in my cloud after a move, whether or not it's an appropriate place for it to be there. And if it deems that it's not, then it'll either not do the action on your behalf, or it will make the corrective action for you on the fly. And this goes all the way up into, Scott had mentioned DLP. So DLP services are now being baked into virtual security layers that all follow the workloads and the data. So if this data as a block lands in the wrong place, as an example, I can either quarantine it or I can move it to its appropriate home and alert you instantaneously. So where we are today is geographically dispersed security frameworks, all dynamic within their own frame, with geographic expansion of these security frameworks for complete visibility regardless of where your entry point is. And that's what 2012 is going to bring, is this more dynamic expansion and following of security posture no matter where that information resides.
So Henry, just out of curiosity, what does HP see as the major gaps in the security space for cloud? And what actions do you see from an HP perspective that you think need to be taken and will begin to emerge over the next few years?
Well, I think one of the biggest areas, we're kind of going in a couple of different directions. From a software perspective, I think we are trying to help put tools in place to help agencies build cloud and security into their applications, be able to do automated testing and migration of applications through the development and test and production environments, giving you the automation engine to be that layer between what you're presenting to the administrators and the consumers, and to own enough of the reference architecture to understand all of those integrations and really build security into the architecture. Because if you take an approach where you're really trying to stitch a lot of point product together, not only are you going to have challenges with building a comprehensive security approach to that, but you're also going to have, you're going to own those integrations. And HP, I think, is making efforts to build across its portfolio, both on the hardware and the software side, implement security into the way that the moving parts talk to each other, the way that the data is encapsulated, the way that it's stored, the way that it's tiered, the way the presentation layers work. That's sort of from a software perspective. From a hardware perspective, I think what we're doing is trying to bake in solutions, because a lot of agencies right now, cloud is not a means to, is not an end in and of itself. You know, we want to agencies should be thinking about moving to cloud because there are benefits associated with them doing so, not because they are being told to. One of the reasons with the success of cloud, I think, in the commercial space and with the public is that you can do cool new things that you couldn't do before because you couldn't have those resources. You couldn't have those processes or those application frameworks and those platforms. You just couldn't afford to build them. They were too complex. Now we're being able to sort of offer those, and I think what HP's trying to do is trying to build those in a box, can those. In the early stages, certainly, it was a work in progress. I think today it's a very different landscape than it was a couple of years ago. I think you have turnkey solutions that can do very sophisticated cloud functions, whether it's infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, or even really things like virtual desktop and those kinds of things. But all of that, we're trying to bake security in through products like Fortify and Tipping Point and ArcSight, which are architectures that we own. And then now, where they used to be sort of a standalone solution, now they're a cloud map or a workflow that comes with your infrastructure as a service appliance or your virtualization appliance.